Have you heard? Metro by T-Mobile now includes Amazon Prime. Yes, enjoy the best of shopping and entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, free shipping, and much more. All included for just $40 per line for 3 lines. All on the T-Mobile network. Discover the smarter way. Metro by T-Mobile. That's genius. One offer per account. Offer subject to change. $12.99 per month value. Offer valid for new Amazon Prime members. Metro customers may notice reduced speeds versus some T-Mobile customers. Video at 480p. Capable device required. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Aquarian Radio at aquarianradio.com. And this is an episode of Experiencers Network, and I'm your host, Janet Carolesson, with my co-host, Karen Christine Patrick. And today we are interviewing the fabulous James Gilliland, and he is a minister, counselor, and an internationally known lecturer, best-selling author with the books Reunion with Source, Becoming God, and The Ultimate Soul Journey. James appeared in Contact Has Begun, His Story, the History Channel, UFOs Then and Now, UFO Hotspots, ABC, Fox News, BBC, Danny Dyer's Special, Paranormal State, ESETI Ranch, a documentary, and the new movie Thrive have all featured James and ESETI, of which he is the founder. He's been on Coast to Coast, Jeff Brent, and numerous other radio shows, including ours, to mention also being a host of As You Wish Talk Radio. And Contact Has Begun. And As You Wish is on bbsradio.com, and Contact Has Begun is worldpuja.net. And he's a facilitator of many Eastern disciplines, a visionary dedicated to awakening and healing of humanity and the earth, and teaches higher dimensional realities for experience. He's also going to be at Contact in the Desert the first weekend in June. And before I bring him on, I want to just say, bring Karen on. Karen, are you there? Would you like to say anything about James Gilliland?
Oh, I'd be glad to. I'm super excited about this interview. I used to live in Washington State. As many of you know, I moved to New Mexico, and I got a chance one time during my hectic schedule as a caregiver. I got a chance to get out to ESETI Ranch. It's one of those things that, you know, we're here at Experiencers Network. We're talking to experiencers all the time. If you're one of those people that feels a little left out and you actually want to have your own experience, that's the number one place I recommend to go, because you will be, with other experiences, you will see all kinds of amazing things, and it's a spiritual vacation, I think. At least it was a great retreat for me. So, James, I thank you for that experience, and hopefully we can talk more about ESETI. I love it.
Welcome
You're great.
to the show, James.
Thanks for having me on the show. It's been real busy here lately. I've been traveling. I was in Australia and Japan and doing lectures and workshops and counselings over there. And when I got back, it was really nice. The sky just opened up, and I had Winston Strout here. He's a good friend of mine, and we were sitting out here watching the sky, and we counted like 49 ships, I believe, and then we just stopped counting after that. But it's a pretty busy night, and it's still happening.
Well, that's exciting. Last night I went out, a bright light caught my eye, and I went and got my glasses, and it was doing a dance where it was separating into 2 and 3 and then coming back together and separating, and I kept blinking my eyes going, am I really seeing this? And nobody, of course, was around. But what do you think is happening that we're having such extreme contact right now? Are we about to have disclosure? Is something about to happen?
Yeah, definitely. It's going to come from the skies, though. The people have done a lot of work on the ground to get disclosure, but the real disclosure is going to come, on their terms, and it's going to come from the sky. And I've seen lately we're having these incredible beings show up here. They're like 9th and 11th dimensional beings which their energy is just off the scale. I mean, the whole room just heats up and gets real hot, and it's a very intense energy to deal with. But some of these beings are ninth dimensional Anunnaki beings that never fell, and they said they're coming to right or wrong. They're returning here, and they're calling the fallen Anunnaki before the councils, and they're having to deal with what they've done that went against universal law and things like that. And then the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, and Arcturians, and the Orion Council of Light, and all the others are involved also in that. And the Sirians are involved in this process. But just recently, there's a ship that's coming here, and actually it just recently arrived here. It's in the 11th dimension, though. And it's massive. It's a massive ship, and it seems like timed it when they came here, because we just passed through this solar anomaly. It's they call it a solar sector boundary crossing, and it's a fold in the heliospheric current sheet, and it's just a vast wavy structure, and it has all these regions of opposite magnetic polarity. So it's they call it a solar sector boundary crossing, but it triggered a lot of geomagnetic activity on the Earth, and then it really rattled everybody's cages, and so I know with the presence of the ship and this solar sector boundary crossing, along with we're just getting impacted, major impacts from the sun right now. It's just everything is moving forward very quickly, and it's really pushing the process, the awakening healing process forward.
Well, that's very exciting. I wanted to go back, and I'll ask you a question, and we'll take turns, because Karen is always over there with her hand waving. She gets excited when she asks questions, too. You were talking about the Anunnaki. I've researched the Anunnaki. I've got two books I've co-authored, and my husband has a third. And, it's just endless. So we have Karen was involved with A.R. Borden and the Linkage Institute, and A.R. was in contact with the Anunnaki, and Michael Lee Hill, and all these people are waking up. I've had contact with Anunnaki, so has Karen. So you're talking about the fallen ones, and there's different factions. Could you explain that a little bit more to me and to the listeners, what you mean by those who fell, those who didn't, and what you said previously?
Yeah.
You said a bunch of things in between, but go back to that, please.
Okay. Well, a couple years ago, actually, I just finished a book myself. It's called Anunnaki Return, Star Nations in the Days to Come, and that was just released just a few months ago. But you can get that anywhere, Amazon, Lulu, or any of the major ones, any of the major bookstores. But what's going on, basically, what happened with me is, I knew about the Anunnaki, and I read stories in Sitchin's work and things like that. I've always felt that it wasn't complete, or there's missing parts to it and things like that. And then so I started having recall of past life recall of actually being one of them, in a past life. And the stories that I remember were different. They're a little different than the stories that they were telling, but there was a split, within the Anunnaki. It was a split that happened, and there was a kind of there was people on Earth that fell, and they tried to take control of the Earth, and Marduk was the worst in this mess, and they broke away, and they broke away from the Council of 12, and he enlisted help of the reptilians and everything else, and there's just a big mess, and they got into all kinds of turf wars and fights, amongst themselves, and involved a lot of other people, and it's just, and so now this whole mess is being cleaned up. But what happened to me is, I think it was a couple of years ago, I had this being by the name of Inha, and she's a ninth dimensional Anunnaki being, appear to me. And from then on, she just started explaining to me what was going on and what was happening. And she looks kind of like Cameron Diaz, basically, just a beautiful woman all in gold, a gown, and she had a staff, and she was wearing one of those hats, like a cone head type thing, to cover her cone head, I guess. I don't know. But, she filled me in on a lot of the ancient history and about the demigods who were half human, half Anunnaki, and she actually said their base, their original planet was Lyra, and they're actually Lyrians, and that Anunnaki, the Nibiru, was just a base. That was just one of the colonies, but they colonized throughout the multiverse, basically. So a lot of them are six-dimensional beings, and then you have the fallen ones here. They're in the fourth dimension, and some even in the third dimension. I think they fell that far.
Right, and that correlates with a lot of what I was getting. Do you have a name as your Anunnaki self? Your avatar as an Anunnaki?
Yeah, it was Kael. It was Kael.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I actually had a drawing. There was an artist talking to, and she did a drawing of it, of what I looked like back then. It was interesting, but I was actually a hybrid. I was part half human, half Anunnaki, and a lot of people don't realize what happened was when they were interbreeding. They did. There was a situation 450,000 years ago where they first came here and they started playing with, the knuckle draggers here. There's a couple different beings that they started jumping up the DNA, and then they came back again. They're here for quite a while. It's 450,000 years ago when this all started, and then the second colonies were actually the Pleiadians, which are the Lyrians are their ancestors, and so the second coming were them, and they started up Atlantis and Lemuria, and that's when they saw the daughters of man to be fair and took them as wives, because they had evolved into very, very beautiful beings, and since then. But when that happened, what happened way in back with Enki and Enlil and things is that Enki was doing all kinds of experiments and increasing the DNA, and he was building some beautiful beings, very beautiful beings, and then they were actually adding, having sex with them, actually, and having children with them and things, and those were the demigods that they created. So
if they can copulate and procreate, we're actually the same species. A species means that you can reproduce and your children can have children. So, a dog and a cat can't have children, but we can have children. So we are they and they are us.
Yeah, the same genes. Like Noah was a demigod, and what happened with Noah was when he was born, he glowed. He had white hair and he was glowing, and everybody didn't know what to do with him. and so he actually went beyond Enlil's abilities and his spiritual adeptness, and mastered eternal life and everything. He was extremely advanced, and which really infuriated Enlil, and so Enlil was trying to end the experiment and destroy everything and start over, and Enki was
the beings that were here, although they appeared primitive and knuckle rubbers or whatever you call it, they're actually more spiritually advanced than the Anunnaki, who were like denser and they knew about the creator of all, but they were disconnected from a lot of their spiritual beginnings. We all started in source, right? And we came down as Lyrians and Pleiadians, and the humanoid species are probably all related in some way. And, then we go into the different types of species that we can't procreate with them naturally. We have to use DNA enhancement and, like a lab-type combination. Well, this is fascinating. Let's give Karen a chance to talk. I can see her. Even though she's over in New Mexico, I can see her with her hand up. Go ahead, Karen. What would you like to ask James?
That's funny how you can see like that. That's great. Now, there's a million different ways to go with this. We've brought so much up already, but I know that I did not want to let James go without asking him about feline beings or lion beings, because when I went to visit the ranch and learned about, the different beings that had visited there, I kind of learned about the feline beings, and there's, I think, a picture of it on the website, and it was kind of in the back of my mind. And then I actually had an experience with one about 2 years ago, and it was just really profound. Those are amazing, amazing beings, very, very high spiritual beings. And I was just wondering if you had a history on them. My own, knowledge, as far as I got it, was that they're from Lyra, or Lyra was one of the places where their species was from. So if you had any more information, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, they're most of them are in Sirius actually, but they were in Lyra. They were in a lot of different places, and there's multi dimensions to them because they have a cat-like humanoid being that's upright. It's upright, very beautiful beings, and they're feline beings, and those are fifth dimensional ones. And then they have one that's like a panther, and they also walk upright. It's interesting. And those are on the sixth dimension. The seventh dimensional ones are humanoid lions. They're very, very tall, very big. They're 17 feet tall. And they were depicted as Sekhmet. There's a statue of Sekhmet, and it's a female, and she's 14 feet tall. Well, the reason the statue's 14 feet tall is because she was 14 feet tall. And they were the protectors of the gods. They were the protectors of the Anunnaki, and they're also Narissa and India. They're all throughout India. There's Narshringa, they call them. There's a long history of them interacting with us in the past. But what happened is when the Anunnaki fell, they left and they went back and they said, we can't protect you anymore because you're operating outside of universal law. And they have a strict code, so they said, well, we can't participate in this anymore, and they went back to the homeworld. But they're returning now with the benevolent gods. They're actually returning to, reinstate Earth back into universal law and get things cleaned up here and get things back on track.
Well, that's something I'm learning about. Just one thing I'm learning about statues in the past that we see in the Greek gods or Roman or Egyptian is that was actual size. The Moai from Easter Island have bodies; they're not just heads. That was their actual size, and that was exactly the context that I meant. The being was protection, and I got that. I got that this being was very, very tall. I picked that up.
Yeah.
So sure, mentioning that and protection. That was the deep. I needed protection spiritually and in every other way right at that moment, and that's what I perceived, and I felt, we got a 17 tall, benefactor. It makes you walk confidently, and you feel better about yourself, so thanks for that.
Yeah, they definitely do take care of you.
Oh, I have a question. It makes sense to me that, we have these little representations of those species that are sentient conscious, that can walk bipedal upright, and they have eyes and a head and ears and nose perhaps, but at least they have the bipedal. They have the opposing thumb on the hands. They have some way of picking things up and making things physically. Those creatures seem to come in variations on the theme. So you have your stories of your Lyran, your cats, and then I have my domestic cat. We have our giant cats. We have the saber-tooth. It seems like they're related. Same with like the reptoids. We have dinosaurs down here in Maui, a lot of geckos, and then we have. I've actually seen many times a reptilian, and when as a child I perceived him as being something to be afraid of. But when I did therapy and integration, I realized he was just trying to communicate with me, and his because I have a preconceived notion of what is beautiful, what's ugly. To me, it was like something to be afraid of, but just as conscious as other beings. So then we have humanoid. We have kind of like monkeys and things that are related to the humanoid form. Although they are genetically related, but we're related to everything. Ultimately, when you get into the DNA structure, so it seems like there might have been a massive kind of a distribution system going throughout the universe to take these basic forms, avatars in which life can, incarnate, and spread it throughout to different environments, and then seeding them and seeing what would evolve. And you know, because we have these species here, and mantis. Look at the praying mantis, giant mantis. You know, 8-12 feet tall, and then you have a little praying mantis that sits on your leaf. So, what do you think about both of you?
Oh, go ahead. I'll sit back if you want to comment on that.
Karen,
or did you want me
first? Yes, James.
Go ahead, James. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's my understanding with people I know. I work with some people that are, they have like 9 PhDs in biophysicists and things like that, and they're also enlightened. They have these beings appearing to them as well, and what they were telling me is that almost every species on Earth has a counterpart that's evolved, into a bipedal being, and throughout the multiverse. So it's kind of interesting. You think about it that, most of the animals and bugs and everything here eventually, evolved. And, it also brings into the concept of time travel. Let's say these beings are super evolved and have time travel. Mantis being could evolve and then come back in time and show up here and see his his ancestors here walking around eating bugs, on the ground. Yeah, so it's kind of you have to factor the time travel thing in there too, because they do have that ability.
Right. Karen, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I wonder about that too, because we have, was always been interesting in Robert Rosales's list of species that have been contacted, humanoid species that have contacted people. It's something like, tens of thousands of different species, and it's always fascinating the diversity of that. And so then adding to the fact that I sometimes think Earth is a bit of a botanical garden. Like, when you look at a jellyfish, that's not from here. I think that's from space somewhere, another planet somewhere. There's just some creatures that seem to be from elsewhere, and I think this is a botanical garden. I think that you're right. I think that they're promulgating, bringing here maybe species of planets that didn't quite make it, or just to bring them all together and have them here on Earth, because Earth's diversity of species is incredible. And actually, our species of humans is pretty diverse, really.
Yeah.
And the idea is, can we all get along, right? Even though we're so different, because if we can get along with all our differences, we're going to be ready to get along with the diversity that we're surely going to find in space. And the diversity of contacts of different kinds of beings, many of them, humanoid, that seems to be a standard model template. That's the key, is we're learning how to do that. And I think you've even said that, something like that before, James.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting, because my trip to Australia, I got to hang out with the Aboriginals there, and we really connected, and I was having all these visions and seeing the ancestors and some of their beings that that are folklore. Like, they have beings that they walk differently than humans. Their knees actually go the other way. Our knees are forward and our foot bends back. Their knee is the opposite way. It's really interesting. And very tall beings, 9-foot tall beings, and they gather feathers there. They call them the Junabi. And so I was talking to these elders about these beings I saw when I was at Uluru in the desert out there, and they're blown away. And so they started showing me things, and the more they started telling me things, the more I told them what I knew, and they totally, we're on the same page about everything. And then they took me to a place called, they showed me a place called Gosford Glyphs, and that was, it was just quite interesting, because I was with, I spent some time with Ulukai Brendan Murray, who's king of the Raven tribe, and then Peter Slattery, who's over there. He's East Eddie, Australia, over there, and together we went out to these glyphs, and they showed me the whole story of Earth, and that everything actually began in Australia, not in Africa. And Aboriginal means the original people. They're the original people. And so when I got through reading the glyphs and the stories there, I realized that what we've been told has been wrong in our history books. And what happened was that, the glyphs, they have the star glyphs on top that tell about the story of the, those who came, the ships coming down and then interacting and adding their DNA to the humans that were here and all this other stuff. They have all that information there, and it's written in stone. It's right on the glyphs. And then they have the story of two pharaohs that returned to Australia trying to get the knowledge, and they tried to steal the knowledge and take it back to Egypt, and they both died. They were two brothers. They're pharaohs. And one got bitten by a snake, and the other one was shipwrecked. Ended up being shipwrecked out there. But and it's all they're star glyphs, and then there's hieroglyphs, and then there's more to the story, so anyway, all this stuff is written in stone, and there's Egyptologists that have come out and deciphered the writings, and the Palladian glyphs are very similar to the star glyphs. The hieroglyphs. And that's where the Egyptians got their hieroglyphs from. And I think that even goes back to ancient Lyra. But it's interesting. But from my understanding of it, what I got from it is that the story talked about the original people that came here, 450,000 years ago, the Anunnaki or the ancient Lyrians, and very tall beings, very big beings. And then they added their DNA to the others, and it's all written in stone. And then the second coming were the Palladians that came here and started their colonies. But this was all written in stone, and it totally validated what my research is and my inner work and what the other beings have been telling me. But the most fascinating thing about this is that several things. When we went to Westall, where they had that landing of the ships that landed right in the playground, by the school there, and they took off and all the kids chased them and everything. Thousands and thousands of ravens came and totally surrounded us, and it was just unbelievable. We filmed the whole thing, and
wow.
And so we went back to Brendan Murray, who is the king of the Raven tribe, because that was your initiation. But just crazy things happened on this trip, and I got to see all these ancient the glyphs and everything else. But what's interesting, too, is it tells about the pharaohs coming back to gain the knowledge, which means that the knowledge actually started in Australia. Now, the Egyptian gold comes from Ballarat, and Ballarat's in Australia. So the gold in Egypt actually came from Ballarat, and everything is pointing back to that experience. And to me, when the continents all separated, that was when things started splitting off, and the different groups got caught in different areas and kept evolving. But what's interesting is if you go to the genome experiment, everybody has Aboriginal DNA in them to one degree or another.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so we have Aboriginal DNA.
I sent my spit-in to Ancestry. I haven't received it yet, but you can do the DNA test. So I wanted to see where this form came from and what's the DNA. So I wonder if that's a special test you can do to find out that. I think they just. I don't know what they call it. It probably will come. Yeah. If you did a DNA testing, I'm not sure what they call it. There's a name for it. That'll be a certain gene, and you'll have that in your system. But we're also the combination of 12 major star nations, along with the Aboriginal DNA, and all the upgrades that went along with that. And there's other ones that came here and been genetically manipulated and tinkering as well. So I don't know how many different groups that have added their DNA to Earth, as well as their plant and animal DNA and things that they brought with them. But the Palladians have the most stock here. They're the biggest major terraformers, and they have the most genetic stock here than any other group. Well, that's fascinating. I just it's a lot of money, but I said, well, I was just curious, and it was my birthday, and I said, honey, I'm going to treat myself to an ancestry test. So I invite you to do that. It would be great to see. They're putting it all into a central database as more and more people sign up for this, and there is a cost to it, and you can get it in different places, not just Ancestry.com. So, and now they're doing television shows. What do you think you are? And then they have like celebrities, get their DNA. And there was one very white-looking Jewish man, and he gets his DNA, and he's more Native American than anything else. He said, "I'm an Indian. I'm Native American." He was so shocked that he's got blonde hair, blue eyes, and he has a Jewish name, and he's a famous Hollywood movie maker. And so you never know what you're going to be when you get your DNA back. So this is fascinating. So do you have all this in a book or a coming book, or I know that Stuart Swerdlow did a series of books like that, and he got his information from wherever. It would be nice to correlate this and have a comprehensive, almost like a new encyclopedia for us. Where did we come from? Who's all been here? How have they contributed? Because to me, it's just absolutely fascinating to realize that we're already family with all these extraterrestrials. And so when they finally do have the great family reunion, we're going to know it's a homecoming more than anything else.
Oh yeah, I always say if you want to see an ET, just look in the mirror, because we are the ones we've been looking for, and they're returning. The greater family of man is returning right now, and they're going to get things back on track, and that's why you're seeing all this chaos right now and craziness, especially in the political arena. That whole thing is going to get turned upside down because it's so corrupt. It's just not fixable. I don't know where it's going to end up, but
it's just becoming obvious, like this is a major broken system, and it was a grand experiment, but, it's not how extraterrestrials do it. Do you have any inkling of how their governance and their economic structure? Because this one pisses me off. I don't like how cruel it is.
They really, most of them don't use money because, their technology, and they're so advanced. They have replicators, everything. They don't need money, for anything. And so they don't use money. And they also are governed by councils. People on the councils are chosen, according to their, usually their spiritual adeptness and their track record of service, to the civilization. And it's a whole different setup than we have here. Our leaders are chosen by, how much cash they've acquired and it doesn't matter how they put it, it doesn't matter if they bribed their way to the top or if they, destroyed the earth or how many people died, around them or whatever. As long as they built an empire on power and wealth, they're going to get into office and become our leadership. And it's really sad. I shouldn't say all of them. I mean, there are a few good ones in there, but very few, unfortunately. And it's we there's no saying you deserve the government you have because we're allowing it. We're allowing this to happen. But I think this next 2 years, it's all going to change. Everything is going to change.
I sure hope so. That's what Laura Eisenhower said at one point. She said, "Don't vote for it. Don't vote for any of it. You really want to go vote for that?" And so I'm not sure what to do. What I typically do is I say to myself, I'm going to go vote, and then I make some kind of thing happen. And I'm really good at manifesting. So I'll get a flat tire or something. And then I couldn't go anyway because I had a flat tire. And because I'm so conflicted.
I mean, just in a way, legally, when you vote, you're giving them your agreement to the system. You're agreeing to the way things are happening. And so it's kind of, but everybody goes, well, if you don't vote, evil will get in there. Well, every time it doesn't matter. They install the evil. It's like it's the rigged system, and that needs to change. But it's all being shown for what it is. It's all surfacing, and people are seeing it everywhere. Just how ridiculous it is.
Are you getting any downloads or information on how it's going to shift? I mean, I got a download in February. I was on the mainland, and I kept getting downloads every other night. And I don't know if it's true or not, but it was basically they're going to do a mass sighting, so over all the skies, so there won't be any place in the world that won't see the ships, and it'll all be simultaneous, like the day the Earth stood still. And the grid will shift from the the pyramids are still active. They're just dormant, right? And they can be easily activated. So nothing will, you won't have planes falling out of the sky or people on life support, being cut off from their equipment. It'll just seamlessly shift from fossil fuels to, and then they're going to start. One thing they came into like the major town squares, and they came into the local towns, so people could go down and actually face them. It was simultaneous. It was everywhere all at once. So it wasn't like it was too massive. It couldn't be a little government-made false flag. It was just too massive. It was everywhere. It was like all the species of the universe came in and cooperated together, and nobody was traumatized because it was like we've been preparing for this since the day the Earth stood still in 1951. Our government started experimenting with what will contact look like. We had E.T. and what was the one that Spielberg has done a lot of work, and all these things. Yeah. So what are you getting? That's kind of what I got. I'm not like trying to be a prophet, but I just went, wow, that's cool. Bring it on,
Yeah, from my understanding is that there's so many ships here right now. They're jockeying for parking space. They're everywhere, and what's happening, a lot of them aren't in this dimension, but they can drop in and let themselves be seen. But they're observing, they're sitting there, and they're working energetically with the grids and with certain, shifting consciousness and things like that. They're doing a lot of work on those levels right now. But eventually, as the Earth, there's a combination of things going on. The Earth's frequency is rising, and they're dropping down to let us see them at the same time. So it's a combination event, and that's why the people that have chosen to awaken and that are on the spiritual path are having all these incredible experiences, because they're actually ahead of the game. They're rising in frequency, and becoming a part of this experience. They're initiating the experience, versus a lot of the other people are just still doing their 9-to-5 jobs. They're in their cubicle, and they they go to work and they go back to another cubicle and put on the big screen and crack a beer and eat a pizza and watch a football game, and so
wow.
they're gonna kind of miss the program, because but eventually they're gonna have some big some major ahas and awakenings, because it's gonna even come over their TV. They're not gonna be able to stop it.
Right, it'll interrupt their football game. It'll be halftime at the Super Bowl.
They've had ships fly over the Super Bowl and things like that. They've had those, but they just hushed it all up. But they've had ships fly right over major football events and things like that. But you just don't hear about it. They don't cover it.
They don't publish it.
You'll see it. A lot of people will get pictures of it and put it on the internet and everything, but mainstream won't touch it with the 10-foot pole.
Oh yeah, that's right. They had it over the Olympics. I remember that. Like a few years back, they had
same
pictures
thing.
of
Yeah,
the Olympics.
And we had when I was in Australia, we had the most amazing sightings, like daytime sightings of ships flying right over the house. And Peter Slattery actually filmed a lot of that, and so Rita. But if you go to Australia, if you go to eSETIaustralia.org, you can actually see the documentary of the ships, that we were engaging while we were there, and you can see the elders. Yeah, you can see the elders that we were working with, and then also you can see the Raven initiation and all that stuff. We filmed all of it. It's just amazing documentary.
I have your website I made a page for today's show, so I have it right there on Aquarian Radio, but eSETI.org, ECETI.org. Make sure you go there and check out all the pictures. It sounds incredible.
Yeah. Well, eSETIaustralia.org is the one you want to go to for the documentary.
Australia. Okay, I'll go look at that right now. Australia.
Yeah, we have affiliates. We have affiliates in Australia, Japan, and Ireland right now, and some other places are starting up, their own little eSETI groups.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I missed you in Australia. Okay, I'll try that again. Karen, what do you want to say?
Yeah, I'd like to throw in on the Australian connection because when I was still living in Washington State, there was a group that did meditations with didgeridoo instruments. and they literally like passed it over your body, and that's like the most incredible experience. It's like an internal massage. It's amazing.
Oh yeah.
But it kind of put me into an altered state of consciousness and made me realize something I'd never really thought of before. This one was like a really bass, low tone, didgeridoo.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that the voices of the gods to the people would have had this really low. I mean, it just got me in tune with the fact that when you have a being that's 12 feet tall, 7 feet tall, whatever, that the timbre of their voice is so much lower. And in a sense, the didgeridoo is like reproducing the voices of the gods, so to speak. That's sort of
right.
This visualization I got when I was going through this experience. And that, just as a primordial dwarf or dwarf type person would have a higher pitch, voice because as they get smaller. So it was kind of like, what I'm assuming that they use that instrumentation as part of getting in touch with the gods because it's literally in those frequencies,
Well, I know
very
the
complex
low tones are healing as well. The lower tones are extremely healing. And people think the high frequency tones are the healing tones. It's not. It's actually the low tones. That's why the lamas chant those deep guttural tones,
Yeah,
the same
and
reason.
the low bells,
the
bells that are real low. And it vibrates your body. It was like, it was vibrating as this thing's going over my body. I'm just feeling it like over my chakra system and my physical manifestation body, just getting an alignment or a tune-up or something. It was really amazing. And that was so I'm assuming that's part of their culture, straight up.
Yeah.
That
drums do that as well.
I'm excited. I'm about to be in a drumming circle here in New Mexico, so I'm very excited.
Oh, great!
I moved here. I moved here in October. Maybe we'll get an East anything going here for you, because it's a very spiritual place. We're not far from Roswell, from Dulce. I feel like there's a lot of stuff under our feet right here. 2 years ago, I got out to Chaco Canyon. I've just been blown away with the energy of this place. And I shortly after we got here, I bought a car. I opened my sunroof. It was nighttime. I looked up at what I thought was a satellite, and it took a right-hand turn. So I was like, that's what they do.
It's always nice.
Well, we're watching it. That's what they do. That's not a satellite for sure. So,
they power up. I don't know if you've seen them power up, but they come over here. They light the whole sky up. They go boom, and say hi.
When I went to East Eddie, I got into some kind of frequency tune-up because that whole rest of that calendar year, I was standing right and left up in the sky. And then when I was my next birthday, I said, I'm going to get a UFO for my birthday. It's like they told me. And I looked up in the sky again. I thought it was a satellite, and it powered up, and no, that's not a satellite. And then it proceeded to take off, away from you like they do, which is very interesting to watch because it makes like a skittery motion in the sky, and it's just gone because it's going away from you.
I got one on my
birthday present I got.
Yeah,
that was awesome.
I did that on my birthday. I was meditating, and I said, you know what? I just want a big power up treetop levels come over the house, and I'll be happy. And sure enough, on my birthday, this massive ship came right over treetop level and powered up, and it whited out the whole screen. I got it on film. And it totally, and I show it in my talks and lectures, and people are just blown away. They go, oh my God, And I've had NASA people out here, and Air Force base commanders and triple PhD Boeing engineers, all these guys looking at this footage and seeing the ships, and they just said, these aren't ours. We don't know who they are.
When I was there was from Boeing that was there to see the show.
Yeah.
So I wonder what they thought.
Yeah, we get a lot of Boeing people out here. There's a lot of regulars from that. They go back and tell their friends, and the next thing you know, there's 5 or 6 of them coming out here at a time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awesome.
So James, tell me about your contacts. I've had a lot of, contact experiences where, I've been. I don't think I've ever taken. I think I just go, because that's part of who I am anyway. And I find myself on a ship or another planet, and I see other people, and it goes on my entire life. Tell us a little bit more about your contact you've had, been on ships, other planets, what beings you've seen.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because as a kid, I had a lot of experiences where they would take me. One particular one, a very tall being appeared to me, and they took me before a council. And this being walked up. I know who he is now. He's an ambassador with the Orion Council of Light, and he was wearing robes basically. And he took me before a council, and they were talking about this plan. And I was part of this plan, I guess. I still don't know what the plan was, but I remember vividly the experience. And, I think the plan's unfolding right now with ESETI and all the other things that we've been doing, getting that information out. But I've had experiences like that where I've gone up on motherships and I've seen a whole diverse group of beings working together. That's where I met the feline beings for the first time. And then I've had... I've gone on plasma ships that are just pure energy, but you're in it like a six-dimensional body when you do those. And I've been on ships that have, regular seats in them. Like they have some Palladian ships that have 3 seats in them, and they're metallic and not really metallic. They look metallic, but they're made out of a different type of material, like a living material. But diverse, but what I've noticed is that they all have the same message basically, and it's the same message that all the master teachers have given us over the years, and clean up your consciousness and clean up your planet basically is what they're telling us.
Yes, and I've been to the council meetings. I was once at a giant United Nations meeting of about they said it was 100,000 unique species. There were no two of the same species. So I was there representing human beings from Earth, right? But I wasn't the only one. Over time, a lot of people go. I know I'm never anything special. This is just normal. But I was there, and they created this kind of like a stadium type of thing with seats, and the person that would be talking, they would be highlighted where they're sitting in a seat, but they would simultaneously have an avatar which would appear. I was down in the very center of facing a panel of three beings, and they were kind of, best way to describe them, they were boar-like. They looked like boars, and so, but they weren't quite. That was just that's my mind trying to interpret what they look like, right? And so then when somebody wants to ask a question, they simultaneously appeared in front of me, like a projection, like their avatar projected, and we would have a conversation. But everybody in the entire arena could understand exactly what we're saying. It was like an incredible universal translator that was happening, live with the communication that we're having. Most communication, when I go, is telepathic. And we're not using the mouths. It's for some reason that's kind of cumbersome, so it's much faster to use telepathic communication. And then we're working with FREE. Are you part of FREE, the Edgar Mitchell Foundation for?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're working with FREE.
Well, I'm not really part of it, but I know most of the people there, but that work on it.
Okay, so we've been helping out the best we can and working with experiencers. So what do you do with experiencers? How do you help an experiencer, go from the paradigm of there's no contact? They might be the first one in their family that's having conscious contact. How do you work with them so they can integrate their experiences and not feel like they're going crazy? Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of major support groups for experiencers. We have an experiencer panel here and things like that. When we do the workshops and the conferences, but we do most of our work through counseling, through personal counseling, and we'll go in and clean up the energy there and clean up the trauma and the fear or anything else that happened, and allow them to reframe the event and look at it from another perspective, from their God self versus a victim, so things like that. We do a lot of counseling work like that help people, and we also show them, if it wasn't a pleasant experience, how to stop that, how to maintain your own self-authority and call in the right beings, to make sure that doesn't happen again. So we do a lot of training, especially in the ambassador training and things like that, to teach people how to maintain their self-authority and not call in and not work with anything of a lower dimensional nature, that might not be in their highest and best good.
Are you finding that there are predominantly good experiences, bad experiences, somewhere in between? What are you encountering in your work?
Yeah, it's kind of like all the above. The negative ones seem to have ceased, and people are just dealing with the past trauma. There's still some regenerate beings here that are wreaking havoc now and then, but most of that is being cleaned up. But it's still, there's some going on. But most of it's benevolent lately. What we've seen is that we connect people to their ancestors, their Star Nation connections and their past life connections that have the Star Nation connections in them. And then they go through a huge life-changing experience when that happens. And then we go in from age 1 and start pulling their trauma, anything, childhood trauma, anything that happened to them, we clear that out and then initiate them into conscious contact with their own main teacher and guide. And so when they go through that process, it's a total life-changing experience for people. And they're very different after the process in a good way.
That's wonderful. Yeah, we do, and we're reworking too. But I think sometimes it's more heinous what human beings do to each other than what the extraterrestrials do. We've got to get humans to stop fertilizing the successive generations. Karen and I were talking about that, what was going on with the religious and cultural conditioning programming, things that promotes that's okay to do on some. It's not conscious, but on a subconscious level, somebody might be molesting, their children, and sometimes it's the parents. So that has to be somehow reprogrammed in our society that's not okay. Not okay.
Yeah. And, a lot of this nonsense goes back to, in the ancient times, you'd go to Earth, and Earth was the B&B, the bed and breakfast, and you do a few tricks, and everybody sees you as a god and brings you their fatted calves and their daughters, and a lot of that went on in the past, and there were some very loving and benevolent beings that interacted with us, and there's ones that weren't, that loving or that benevolent, and were scarred from those experiences because we have this image of this all-loving, all-forgiving God, that Jesus brought us, and then we have the Old Testament God, which was a jealous, wrathful, genocidal maniac. And I don't know why people try to say it's the same being or the same God, because it isn't. And if it is, then we have a total schizophrenic, God. Whenever you have a name, it's there is a divine intelligence, whatever you're going to call it, a creative support, a supreme intelligence. I mean, that does exist, but whenever you have a name or an image or a body, that comes with that, it's part of that, but not all of that. And there were some very advanced beings that were very technologically advanced, but spiritually backwards here on Earth that passed themselves off as gods and things like that, and created a real mess down here.
Mhm. Karen, what would you like to add?
Oh, I actually want to go back to what you just said a little while ago, talking about self-authority. The reason why is I was raised religious, so I was always looking to a higher authority to kind of get me out of whatever jam I was in. Just pray and it'll go away, right? And, my spiritual development was to realize that, my eternal self, my higher self, who I am, just stand in the strength of that. And it was a big, big struggle for me. And when I got across that river, I'm so much calmer because occasionally I'll bump into a negative something or other, and it's kind of like, I'm sorry, no, just go away, no.
Yeah.
I have such a sense of confidence. I don't have a fear factor. And, this is something that people get tripped up on because they have maybe a sense of themselves that's so the conditioned to look at themselves very lowly, kind of powerless individuals.
Yeah.
And we really are very powerful individuals and have our own authority. And this was the thing that my guides probably taught me the most. They respected my own personal sovereignty more than I did. I had to see the me they were seeing,
Mm-hmm.
So I had to see what were they seeing in me that they wanted to communicate with me and help me. Once I kind of got the gist of that, it was a big help with my self-esteem. So I was just wondering what kind of things do you guys do with your team to help people kind of work through that process?
Well, we teach them how to heal unseen negative influences, and how to set boundaries, how to use discernment, because there are, there's beings that are faker spirits that will come and tell you, they're Jesus or Mary or Buddha or whatever. And they'll tell you you're the chosen one and, all this other stuff. And I see people go off on that. And they create a division, they flatter your ego and, and that's how they get in. And, they're not about unity consciousness. They're not about the unified field or things like that. They have all these separation games going. But, we just teach people discernment, we're all from the source. I mean, we all came from the source and we all go back to the source eventually. And there's beings that are utilizing more of the unified field because of their consciousness or their evolution, but we're all of the same source. And what I found out is you go up let's call it the vibrational continuum. The further you get up in the continuum, you meet these beings they're like God beings. They're just pure love and joy and bliss, and they're one with everything. And they don't do division or separation. So there's less division and less separation or identity the higher up you go. And so it's just some pitfalls that people have to be, don't settle for a lesser identity. Don't and don't live in the past. Who cares if you're Cleopatra? What are you doing now? Or Napoleon or whatever. So I think that's important.
Speaking of the ancestors, she's one of my ancestors. But
Yeah.
So what is that like? Yeah, I'm now what? Now I'm in a whole different paradigm. And we watched The Matrix the other day, and we're reflecting on how much that movie was really talking about this. What we see in our mundane experience, and we can believe that. You can get caught up and think that that's the real thing. And or you get knocked on the head with a ball-peen hammer, spiritually speaking, and wake up.
Yeah.
And there you go. There's a whole different paradigm you didn't even know about.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because I know, I get pulled into these things. Like I'm always having, like the county or somebody else trying to slip in here and create havoc or problems, or you've got all this nonsense going on, and you get pulled into those programs, and the same thing with on a larger scale. We're all losing our freedom and we're losing everything is just going in the toilet basically. But you can't get caught up into that. You have to start creating a different world and creating a different reality, and that's what I focus on, is creating a different reality. And it doesn't mean you ignore it. Like I do address the negative or the darkness, but I do it with loving detachment, without letting it consume me or getting caught up in it. And I've had people say that to me. They said, well, why are you talking about that? You're creating that reality and everything else. And I said, no, I'm just defining what's manifesting right now so you can see it and deal with it. And they said, well, you're in fear. And I said, no, you're in fear because you're afraid to talk about it. So, right. So I said, I can talk about anything, and maintain a level of detachment, and it's really no problem, so who's in fear? So, there's some New Age teachings out there that were actually direct programs to manipulate people, and people are starting to figure them out. Like, don't look at evil because it's in you. If you, don't look at this and don't do that, and if you say anything negative, then you're negative. If you even address the negativity, then you're negative. It's amazing. Or you're a lowly being. You're lower than me because I don't see any of this because I'm so holy, It's just like, give me a break,
I hear a lot of that here in Maui. I call Maui hippie land, but it's I love Maui, but it's like, oh, come on, let's do something else. I have a lot of county problems too. I think it's working its way out. One of the things I do is I just keep staying in my personal truth. I say no, but no with love and compassion.
Yeah.
And never any violence or anything. Don't give it that negative energy, but do have your boundaries. At least that's what I've been doing. And people are saying, like, how are you still there? And I go, well, I just say no. And then the universe delivers me the yes. I look for the yeses, and then before you know it, they don't know what to do with that because they're used to people kowtowing to their reality. That it's just like the movie The Matrix. There are 7.5 billion realities, actually. Multiverses.
Exactly.
And we just come to a consensus somewhere, and like, okay, I'm not in your reality. I honor your reality. If you like it, have fun. But we're over here playing this one, and here's all the other people that want to play. That's what we do here on Aquarian Radio. And so people like it because we don't make apologies. We're not apologetic about anything. We just say, here's what's going on. Here's the UTs. Here's this. Here's that. Oh, you have a slightly different reality. Well, that means you're in a slightly different multiverse. But how can we all play together? Oh, my goodness, we've got 1 minute left. This is yours, so we can go a couple minutes over. But James, we'll have you back again. So how to reach you, all that good stuff, and we'll schedule some more time with you. I know we have a lot more to share. This was a great show.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
Well, you can go to eCity.org to find out more about what's happening here, and we have a big conference coming up here on July 4th weekend, and the Memorial Weekend we have an ambassador training going on, which is going to be awesome. I love those, and then I've got the Contact in the Desert event, and I know you have that on your site as well. You mentioned earlier, so. But anyway, a lot going on here, and sky watches were open. We've cleaned up all the destruction here after the winter, and which is a lot of it, and we're back open again. So, come on out and see it for yourself.
Oh, I'd love to get there someday. And Karen, say goodbye to everybody, please.
Oh, goodbye, everybody, and thanks, James. It's great to talk to you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. And area code 586, I'm so sorry I didn't see you there. We'll have you come back on another show. We'll talk to you then. And thank you so much, James, and much love and blessings and aloha, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Same channel, same that station. Okay, love and blessings.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye.
Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.